The Hogsty is brought to you by TicketClub.com, your one-stop shop for live events nationwide. Whether you're looking for game, theater, or live performance tickets, don't sweat it. TicketClub.com has you covered. So make sure you're going there for all your live entertainment needs, and make sure you're clicking over to them from the banner at the top of thehogsty.com.
It's Just Business with Steve Thomas and John Worrell. And now, here's your host, Chris Leary. And welcome back to another episode of It's Just Business. I am, of course, not Chris Leary. Thank goodness I'm not Chris Leary. Although he might be more offended, about that the other way around. But nonetheless, I am Steve Thomas, and I am here only with, for the first time ever, we think, John Worrell. John, how are you?
I'm fine. Also because I am not Chris Leary. But yeah, no, Steve and I go way back. We started the Hogsty together many, many moons ago, and I've been fortunate enough to join the It's Just Business here for the past, half a year or whatever it's been. Steve and I, we've done a number of shows together. I think this is my first time alone with Steve. So if I raise my hand, I want someone to please call an adult.
Well, let's not imply that we haven't been alone for other reasons.
Let's not imply that we haven't. Imply what you want.
Of course, we haven't even lived even in the same country at times, so I may be lying about that.
This is true.
No, it's been an interesting week, for me. I told you I was in. This has already been on the Hogsty this week, but I was in Ashburn this past weekend. Ran into Morgan Moses in a coffee shop,
as one does.
Yeah, he was a very large man, as you might suspect. I immediately, my Hogsty brethren said, "Well, did you get him for an interview?" I was like, "Come on, man!" I mean, he was trying to get. It was 8:30 in the morning. He was getting coffee. He probably
was he
squashed
wearing
me.
Number 76? How'd you know? Like, I have a hard time identifying guys by face when I don't have a number.
Well, you see, I cover the Redskins, John.
Well, sure, I used to. Yeah, I'm into stuff.
Yeah.
Well, cool. How are his knees?
That was the big news. He was walking fine. He looked totally healthy. So if he can get coffee, surely he can play right tackle.
There you go. Don't let him get any kind of surgeries on his scalp or anything. That drives a man crazy.
Yeah, seriously. But we're not here to talk about the Redskins. That was just my interesting little story. And we are here, of course, to talk about sports, law, and business. And since Chris is not here, I promise we will not talk about socialism. And I promise we will not talk about vices and all those things that Chris loves. We might get in
too far to the right for me.
Oh God!
I say we go all the way.
Just go way overboard. No, we're gonna maybe get into a little bit of a socialist sort of topic here later. But the first thing we're gonna start with, quite possibly might be the greatest story we've ever done on this show.
I think so.
Yeah, I really think so. So, John, if you have it in front of us, discuss alcohol, the NFL's new policy with regard to alcohol branding.
Of course, I have nothing in front of me. If I had
you don't.
in front of me, it would probably.
Okay, well let me start then. So, the story we found here is on sportspromedia.com, and the title of the story is NFL set to relax alcohol sponsorship regulations, posted on the 3rd of June. And the general gist of this thing here is this story claims it claims an internal leak that the NFL has reached an agreement wherein beer brands can now use players in their advertisements, but there's a whole host of just wonderful caveats to this. They
can sort of use players. So I don't have it in front of me, but I did do a little digging into it, and there's a couple of interesting stipulations, I believe, with this. So by far the most interesting of these is that the players not actually allowed to endorse the product, according to the leak. Now, that's, of course, we're talking about a leak. This may or may not actually be what's on the table. But
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How do you be in a commercial and not endorse a product?
Well, it's pretty simple, Steve. What you do is you sort of indicate that there is a product, and that according to rumor or hearsay, some people may or may not enjoy said product. So if I'm Morgan Moses and I'm an active football player, so I have to be an active football player. I can't be a retired football player, or I don't know what happens if you're on the inactive list. Are you allowed to endorse if you're not? So you have to be an active player.
Yeah, you may get put on the inactive list if an inactive player.
And then they have to pull your commercials because you're not an active football player. So I'm Morgan Moses. My knees are great. I'm hanging out in Ashburn with Steve. And I'm getting my coffee, and he's letting me. And then I decide I'm going to do a commercial for Budweiser to pick a random crappy beer. I'm going to do a commercial for Budweiser. Now, I can't endorse Budweiser. I can't say this is a product that I endorse in this endorsement. I have to say this is Budweiser, and it's a beverage, and it's very popular statistically. I wouldn't know if it's any good. I can't actually endorse it, but it exists.
I can be in the commercial.
And there are commercials for it, and I can be in one. I can be in one by myself, Steve, but I can't be in one with another person. It's only the athlete themselves or a group of 6 or more athletes.
Not 5. 6.
Not 5 and not 4. And they can all be in the commercial, but they can't. Even as a group, Steve, they can't endorse the product that they're being paid to endorse.
This is just unbelievable. And in case you think he's making this up, this is directly what the Sports Pro Media article says. He's not making this up. These are the rules. This has got to be the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Truly.
No, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Number one, let's just start with the active player thing. What sort of authority does the NFL have over a retired player? None. 0. Why on earth can an inactive player not endorse a product?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. So if you're Brett Favre and you enjoy sitting on the porch with a cold one,
which I think Brett Favre does a lot,
from what I understand, I don't know. He's
maybe not now.
After what he's been through, maybe he's made some life choices that are a little bit better. I don't know.
Let's hope.
But maybe I'm Jim McMahon. And I like having a beer with the fellas, and I would like to make some money because it's been a long time since Ruse has paid me for a headband, and I'm not making anything anymore, and I want to, but no, I can't. I can't. But Odell Beckham Jr. can, because he is an active player.
But not with the rest of his wide receiver group in Cleveland, unless it's more than 5, 6 of them together.
Yeah, 6 receivers or more.
I think that surely to goodness this article and these rules are not implying that they have any control over a retired player. So it must surely not. So they must be talking about inactive players, meaning practice squatters, people on various medical lists. Why on earth couldn't they do it?
Maybe if you're suspended, you can't. Maybe that's what they're going for.
Okay. I mean, do you really want Tyreek Hill advertising for alcohol products?
Probably not.
Yeah, exactly right.
Probably not. He's probably not their number one spokesman they're going for right now.
Yeah, exactly. Probably not. But, I don't understand the rule about 6 or more players. That makes no sense to me. You can't have... I suppose the idea here is you have the entire Redskins offensive line group together crushing 50 beers on a table. You could do that.
The Hogs, I believe, used to do that back in the 80s. They were you read up on some of the, Russ Grimm, Jeff Bostic stories, Jacoby from back in the day, and they'll tell you all about how, sure, there were 2-a-day practices, but our second practice, we would knock off after about 5 minutes and hide in the equipment shed and drink beer.
Oh, you interviewed Jacoby with us. Yeah. I think he talked about that at some level, I think. Yeah. So anyway, it seems remarkably dumb, and with this whole thing strikes me as yet another attempt by the NFL to toe a line and do it poorly. Because the NFL is really good at towing lines really poorly. They've done a lot of this thing in the past couple of years, and this is another one. So it's like they see the alcohol sales, alcohol advertisements as a profit center for the players.
There's money there.
There's money there, understand, but God help us if we really endorse alcohol, and so you put just senseless and stupid restrictions on it. And by the way, this only applies to beer. This does not apply. What they can't do is do this for what the article calls spirits, which mean drinks, and then wine. You can't do that because you can't
just beer.
Yeah, you can't have Morgan be in an advertisement with like whiskey.
I could see Clinton Portis doing like a Grey Goose vodka.
Yeah, or maybe a fine Pinot Noir, wine.
Pinot Noir.
That's a type of wine, right?
I know that you're not a big fan of the alcohol. I used to be, and as a result, I'm not anymore.
That's probably a whole other story we ought to get into in like another podcast.
There's actually no story there. I just kind of decided to stop, and it's not like I had a few sips of champagne today because we launched a product and it was there and that was fine. But I had no interest in sticking around and drinking beer with other people. I think I just got old, Steve, is what happened.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was, what you described was basically my weekend adventure in Ashburn, as a matter of fact. Okay, so and this article goes on. The article goes on to cite, I'm going to pronounce the name wrong, so forgive me. It's Marcel Marcondonis, I think, who is the chief marketing officer at Anheuser-Busch. And this Mr. Marcondonis, or Miss Marcondonis, has, again, in the greatest story we've ever done, the greatest quote we've ever read on this show. Through these agreements, AB brands, meaning Anheuser-Busch brands, have the opportunity to connect with fans in new ways and not to just highlight these players as great athletes, but more importantly, as great people. This is a win for fans, the league, and players, as well as the sponsors.
My name is Andrew Luck, and I am a great person. And it is my pleasure to enhance your fan experience by not endorsing Anheuser-Busch beers.
This can of beer right here.
Can of beer that I'm not endorsing. You're welcome.
And by the fact that he does that advertisement highlights the fact that he is a great person.
He's a great person. And
because he's not endorsing a beer.
But what's important, Steve, is that this is great for the fans.
That's because you can drink.
This is great for the fans.
In case you were not aware that you can drink alcohol while you're watching sports, now you will know because your favorite player can endorse a beer.
So many people had to live through the decades when they didn't know that you could drink while watching a sporting event.
Now, see, they've solved a problem.
These are great people, the athletes.
Look. We've laughed about this. The point here, because it's worth being laughed at. Honestly, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, no, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, and by the way, the article does also cite that the Anheuser-Busch has reached a separate agreement with the MLB Players Union and the NBA Players Union also to allow players to promote alcohol, and they use the term alcohol in the MLB and NBA sentence, implying that the NFL's beer limitation may not be the same in baseball and basketball. So you might get, say, Zion Williamson, pimping, Tennessee whiskey,
sure.
For example.
Well, this is going to be something, I think, Steve, that you have the differentiations between the leagues. This is the kind of thing that a young athlete, a Deion Sanders type or a Bo Jackson who's thinking about multiple different sports, this is probably what's making or breaking their decision to go one way or the other, is whether or not they can be a good person with just beer, or if they can go on to promote Patron
or Hennessy.
That's right.
Yeah, they're a better person, clearly, if they can promote both Anheuser-Busch beer and Hennessy, apparently.
I think so.
This is, like I said, in all
any objective measure.
You're a bad person, I guess, if you're just endorsing like near beer, for example.
Or Zima. Is that still a thing? I don't know.
I don't know. You're asking the wrong person. If you get to pass Sunkist,
I asked you, and then I realized there was absolutely no point.
asking. Look, here's the point, okay? We laugh about this. The point is, this is the NFL, I think, trying to make inroads with the Players Association because, newsflash, for those of you who've been asleep for the past 10, 20 years, the Players Union has an absolutely atrocious relationship with the NFL front office, and this is another way, I think, where NFL players can make make a few bucks. The story is ridiculous, and the way they set up is just absurd and stupid. But I think this is maybe a sign that the NFL is trying to have a better relationship with the players in advance of the collective bargaining agreement, because this is allowing them to make a few bucks that they
I think if we're trying to look at it seriously, which is admittedly hard to do, I think that you're right. I think that this is the NFL making some concessions to something that the association probably doesn't really care about all that much, but is happy to add to the laundry list of complaints about things that they can't do that other athletes can. And I think it was a pretty simple one for the NFL to say, well, we'll throw you, a little bone, a little olive branch on this, and we'll cave on this, but we don't want you guys ever asking for, health insurance.
Okay, God help us. You can endorse, Coors Light, but not we can't give you health insurance.
For traumatic brain injuries, but you can advertise beer.
But the other thing about this is the NFL in the past year has really taken a step away from, in a different direction, shall we say, in protecting its shield. Because you always hear the term the NFL wants to protect the shield, and they've done that by staying away from gambling. There's all these rules about gambling, and in baseball, like Pete Rose famously got booted out of baseball forever because he bet a lot on baseball. And in the past year, we've seen leagues getting literally in bed with gambling houses. There are contracts between professional sports leagues.
A lot of money there.
Yeah, and it's not going to be but a year or two before you see. I don't think the NFL has one yet, but it's going to be coming. It's going to be coming immediately, particularly with the Raiders in Vegas. And so we have that, and now we have players endorsing alcohol. Two major vices. That formerly the NFL wanted.
We weren't going to discuss vices.
I know. I'm sorry, but when you babble, I have a show to babble about for an hour.
I feel
sometimes.
Betrayed. I know we have to each carry half the show. It's not fair. Where's Chris?
He's probably out, indulging in his vices.
He's out vicing. That's exactly right.
But my point here is that the NFL has stepped right into the land of vice that they formerly were not willing to, in the form of gambling and now alcohol advertising. And by the way, what we didn't mention in this is that also, see, my phone is about to reset itself, and I'm about to lose the swimming story. Thank you, Samsung. Samsung, if you're listening to this, stop updating my phone randomly when I don't want it to update.
I'm sure Samsung is paying attention right now.
They ought to be, because that's the one thing I really hate about Samsung products is it just randomly updates. No matter what.
I have that as well. But but it asked me first, do I want to do it now or do I want to do it when I'm asleep?
Well, but if you keep saying no, it eventually does it on its own.
Yeah, you eventually are going to have to capitulate and understand that you don't own your life anymore, Steve.
And this is what is happening currently.
That's right. Now you have talking.
Yeah.
Steve is showing me his Android logo on his phone, which means that he can't actually do anything with it. So
right.
So welcome to my world, Steve. We're now going to play by ear. This is my entire life is done this way.
Yeah. So anyway, and so the point here is, big picture wise, this is two things that the NFL has done for the purpose of making money, because there's a lot of money in both. And they've stepped away from image a little bit to make more money, which is shocking. You know. So that's that story.
I'm looking forward to baseball getting in bed with a gambling house, and then saying that Pete Rose was really just ahead of his time.
Well, who really, the driver with the Pete Rose thing was really Bud Selig, the former commissioner. He really had it out for Pete Rose.
Sure did.
He just would not even listen to the argument. And the new commissioner has kind of followed suit, but it was really Bud who just looks like the anti-commissioner.
Pete Rose will get into the Hall of Fame one day, because they're not going to be able to have a successive string of commissioners, all of whom are hardline. The guy was a hell of a ball player, and he for sure wasn't the only one betting.
Yeah.
And as far as I understand, he bet on his own team. I don't think he ever threw games that anybody could prove.
He bet on his own team to win. Is that really so wrong?
Yeah, I think that he's going to get into the Hall of Fame one day. But
it's an aside, and just as an aside,
we weren't supposed to do that topic.
No, the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame is not a Hall of Fame, if you ask me. If you have said Hall of Fame without the all-time hits leader, the all-time home run leader, and possibly the greatest pitcher of ever in Roger Clemens. Those three guys are not in the Hall of Fame, and so it's kind of a worthless Hall of Fame, if you ask me. But the next story is similarly great, and of course I can't access it because my phone is... Yeah, the Hall of Infamy. We're going to transition here to something else. And I can't access it because thanks to Samsung. But so, John, if you could pull it up and give them the direct side as to what this story is.
Sure. So I'll give you the indirect while I'm pulling it up, which is that somebody's going to start a swimming league, which, as far as I'm concerned, is about all you need to know about this story. Somebody's going to take swimming, which is a pastime that is freely populated by children and soccer moms during the summer months, and they're going to make a professional. I'm mocking it.
It deserves to be mocked.
These are, you have to get in the water and swim to the other side, and then back again, and then you have to do that a number of times, and they have restrictions on how you can do it. You can't do it on your stomach if you're supposed to be on your back. You can't do it on your back if you're supposed to be underwater. There's a lot.
It's like you've never watched the Olympics.
And so the Olympians, they do this faster than other people, and I give them credit because they have to shave their bodies, and they look hilarious because they have all the muscles in weird places, and they look funny, and they have to wear clothes that are not well fitting on anybody. But what we need to do is turn this into a professional league because. Even at the Olympics, the only people in the stands are these people's families and friends and coaches and the family of the coaches. It's a very tight community.
I think you're selling it short here. So let's talk about this in reality. You find the story, I'll babble.
All right. I have the story.
Okay, so the story is from what source?
azcentral.com.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Arizona Central Republic. Jeff Metcalf. Shout out to Jeff.
There you go. Okay, so Jeff Metcalf's story is that there is a push to start a professional swimming league, and Katie Ledecky is involved. In if you've been living under a rock, Katie Ledecky is probably the most accomplished American swimmer this side of Michael Phelps.
Natalie
Certainly the most
accomplished. Is also involved.
Yeah, but Katie Ledecky is the big name.
But sure.
The biggest name, and she's the most accomplished female swimmer I think the United States has ever had. And so the idea here is that these swimmers, who, as John pointed out in a his endearably mocking way, some enormous percentage of the population. It's a popular Olympic sport for sure, but these names disappear.
Gymnastics.
And all of it disappears 5 seconds after the Olympics end.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a push, and this has been done before. There was a professional diving league at one point in time that Greg Louganis was involved in. And I don't see professional diving on your local TV today.
Can you name another diver other than Greg Louganis?
Oh, God. There was another guy after him who was almost as successful.
Yes. Spitz was a swimmer, though.
And he was way before Louganis, by the way. Spitz is before my time.
I think his chest hair won its own medals, as I recall.
See, he wouldn't have
chest hair. Think how much
hair.
faster he'd have gone if he had today's modern razors.
Oh, there you go. Oh, my God. See, maybe Spitz should have been endorsing razors.
Maybe.
But anyway, the point here is that this is another way for these Olympians to try and make a little bit of money. The problem is, what we talk about with all these little leagues is the economics of this stuff never works out if you don't have lots of eyeballs watching it.
So here's some eyeballs that are watching it, is the International Swimming Federation. Apparently, according to Jeff's article, it's Jeff Metcalf with an E at the end at Arizona Republic. swimmingleague.com if you want to talk to Jeff. The International Swimming Federation is no longer threatening sanctions against swimmers competing in the International Swimming League, but will not recognize ISL results or records. So this International Swimming League is not going to be sort of sanctioned or recognized by the International Swimming Federation, who I think are feeling a little bit jealous.
Yeah, probably so, and and this all, what they're coming back to is amateurism versus professionalism, and of course, we're talking about the same Olympics that LeBron James and company, regularly play in. So I don't know what the difference is, frankly, but I guess the question here is, how can something like this be successful? Because I do applaud the idea that these Olympians are trying to parlay their skills into a career, right?
Yep.
Into a money-making career.
Yep.
Because Katie Ledecky won 12, a whole bunch of medalists. Natalie Coughlin won, a whole bunch of medals. Katie Ledecky swam at, I think, Stanford or somewhere, after the Olympics and just beat the tar out of everybody in the NCAA, obviously.
Sure.
So how do you turn that skill into money?
So,
you start a league.
No, you get yourself on the cover of Wheaties for a while, and then you move on, right? So, or you marry a Kardashian, right? Bruce Jenner was a famous Olympian, married some Kardashians, and the next thing you know, he's making money, or she's making money now, and that's fantastic. That's terrific. But I honestly, you don't, right? So to coin a phrase that you've never heard on this podcast before, it's just business. And the problem here is it's a matter of supply and demand, and there is zero demand for a swimming league. Nobody's clamoring for a swimming league. And I'm sorry, right? There's a lot of sports that I love that I think are fantastic sports that I don't think, so in maybe somewhere else. So in England, darts is huge. People will watch darts on television. There's darts leagues and they take it seriously.
Our buddy Rick Snyder on the Seasons of Discontent podcast has done 3 shows in a row where he's done a segment on darts on BBC.
Sure.
Yeah.
Darts is, and over here, it's just something that when you're at the bar and you're drinking, it's something that you can use as a prop to pretend to throw shit at your friends. That's all darts is good for in America. In England, they really care about it. And maybe there's enough of a fan following that if they can find some sponsors to put up prize money, then maybe it'll get like bowling level status.
Does bowling have a status anymore?
Well, yeah, I don't. Sometimes, sometimes you'll see it on the Ocho, right? It's out there. There is still bowling, but it's just you get sponsorships. Pool is another one, right? Shooting pool. There's professional pool players, and they make money at tournaments, and that's fantastic for them because all of the pool table companies will sponsor their stuff and put up some prize money because because if you're a billiard making business, you have an interest in people wanting to play pool. So the difference is bowling and pool and darts are things that you can basically do at the bar and just hang out and do. You're not going to go hang out with your buddies and race across water. It's just not going to happen. Nobody is hanging out and thinking, well, come on, I'm going to get a sponsorship from a chlorine company and Speedos.
I think you're going to double down, as a matter of fact, on your comments when we hear, well, no, not on Speedos. Oh. You're going to double down on your feelings about this league once I tell everybody the exact specifics, because let me tell you something. They're not starting small here, okay? They're jumping, no pun intended, into the deep end of the pool here, okay? John's about to spit his drink out. They truly are jumping in the deep end of the pool.
Oh, you hit me with that right when I just had a mouthful of a carbonated soda beverage.
Almost ruined your computer.
Because they should sponsor me. But no, yeah, I almost lost my laptop. It almost went by way of your phone.
So this is an 8-team pro league, 24 swimmers on each team. Okay, 24 swimmers. Yeah, I don't know how you can find that many swimmers. That are worth. So, but there are teams. There's the New York Breakers, the Los Angeles Current.
192.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
The Los Angeles Current, the Cali Condors, but get this, there's teams based in London, Paris, Rome, and Budapest also. And so there's going to be matches literally all around the world going on here. All these swimming matches.
I don't know that they're going to be all over the world. So I'll tell you one
I
thing.
do.
If you are if you're a scrappy startup league, so here's all of these people need to be in the same pool. And I don't know that they're going to fly 192 people to Naples or Rome and Budapest and then over to California. Well, I can tell you this,
they are going to do that because the schedule has been announced.
They can't. They're going to go broke so fast.
It's not even the worst. We're getting to the worst thing. I haven't even gotten to that yet. So there's Indianapolis, October 4th and 5th. Then you go to Naples, Italy on October 12th. A week later, you're in Italy.
Now you're in Italy next week. Good.
The next week, you're in Louisville, Texas. October 18th.
Louisville, Texas?
Yes. And then we go from Louisville, Texas to Budapest the next week after that.
They're hitting all the big venues. I like that.
College Park, Maryland, November 15th.
Sure.
And then London. And then London a week later. That's the schedule. So, and here's the funniest part. Teams are going to pay the swimmers $150,000. Okay, it says teams will pay swimmers out of $150,000 per team total salary with extra prize money based offered on performance, and the revenue will be split equally between the league and swimmers.
So they're putting up $1 million a week.
Teams will pay swimmers. Yeah, so each team is going to pay swimmers. Divide 150,000, and then you add in prize money, and then the revenue is going to be split 50-50. Now let me tell you something. There's a reason why. Well, yeah,
yeah,
and this is the point. So there's turns out a lot of travel costs in this because we're going all over the world.
Louisville, Texas ain't cheap.
Yeah, and you got to get venues. You got to get presumably people watching this somehow.
Security.
Yeah, security, insurance, all these things. And so there's a reason leagues like the WNBA do not have a 50-50 split, and it has nothing to do with gender, with, no matter what Sarah Spain on ESPN says, the fact that the WNBA does not have as high a revenue split as the NBA does not have anything to do with discrimination against female athletes. What it has to do with is that there's a much smaller amount of revenue. And so the owners of that league want to make some money, and so you can't give the players more money because the delta that's left is a lot smaller profit.
Yeah, you've got operating costs, and
whatever's
above that gets split somehow between the
right. And so in these little startup leagues, the split between the athletes and the league typically is a lot less. And this league, we're starting off with a 50-50 split immediately, on top of traveling all around the world week after week after week. Oh, and I forgot, the World Swimming Championships will be held in July in South Korea. And then there's going to be the fall season they've already got a fall season planned into 2020 leading into the Olympics. So we have a long-range plan here of worldwide swimming domination. And they're splitting revenue in a way that is almost guaranteed to fail, considering they have no TV contracts that are mentioned here. And I can't imagine anybody more than the parents and families of the players are going to buy tickets to this event. So, this is the type of thing that's going to go down immediately.
Well, but you have no product on the other end, right? So if you're going to do something like this, you need to have some kind. And this is where, again, the bowling and the pool and the darts. So at the whole time that you're watching these things on ESPN 12, you're getting pitched, for pool tables, and you're getting pitched bowling balls, and you're getting pitched bowling shoes and darts and special dart gloves and all this crap. And there isn't anything to pitch with swimming. You have a swimming cap and goggles and a Speedo. And that's all there, there isn't, you get like a pool noodle or something. Who's going to advertise on, what are they going to try to sell to people who are, I watch swimming enthusiasts?
Well, maybe the beer companies can come in and take the athletes.
Maybe the beer companies, but the athletes can't actually endorse the beer.
Because if there's one thing that goes well, it's
swim in it. They can swim in a pool of beer. but they can't endorse the beer that they're swimming in.
Because if there's one thing that goes well together, it's water sports and alcohol.
It's drinking and swimming. That's right, kids.
So this is a league here that has absolutely no demand whatsoever. And I'm sorry, Katie Ledecky, it's just the truth. I admire you for trying to get involved in this, but there's no demand. And you're not starting small. You have 8 teams of 24 swimmer rosters each. And you're going all around the world. I mean, you're going to Budapest, Italy, and Louisville, Texas, for God's sakes. If you're going to start a swimming league, start it on the West Coast or the East Coast. Go from San Francisco, Los Angeles, Seattle.
Yeah, don't start with the planet.
Don't start with Budapest and Louisville, Texas.
Where are you going to expand to after the planet? You have to wait for NASA to catch up with your league.
Yeah, I mean, you don't start off internationally with, what was it, 196? 196, right? Yeah,
192 swimmers, I believe.
All splitting revenue equally, whatever they're going to define as revenue. This is doomed to fail quickly and rapidly.
It's going to go by way of, what was that football league?
Well, the AFL.
There's the one.
And think about AFL. They did have a demand for the product immediately because it's football. There's always a demand at some level for football. It was well capitalized, so we thought in the beginning. It turns out it wasn't well capitalized.
I don't know what this "we" is.
Well, that's true. I mean, many people thought they were capitalized. But the point is, they had at least had TV contracts.
Yeah.
This league does this story that we're from Arizona Central. Does not mention any sort of media outlet at all.
I do wish them the best of luck. It would be nice if it was successful. I know that I joke a lot and I'm kind of mocking. I do hope that they're successful, but I can't see a way forward for them to be successful. So I kind of my message is good luck, but good luck.
Yeah, good luck, but good luck. Yeah, that's true. Because it's not going to work. It's going to fail, and that's it. So that is swimming. I hate to go quite so negative, and so what we're going to do instead is we're going to dive into an even more negative story.
Hey, are you going to go jump into the deep end twice? Because I liked it the first time.
I don't think I can come up with a better line than that.
That was really good, man.
But you know what did happen is Kyle Lowry jumped into the seats at a Warriors-Toronto Raptors game. So he didn't really jump. Yeah, so he still jumped.
Yes, it's sort of more of a Scrooge McDuck style.
Yeah, exactly. Scrooge McDuck style. We're really having fun here tonight. This is kind of IJB late night. We're not used to recording. Yeah.
Chris kind of keeps us in line because he has intelligent things to say.
Unlike us, who are just babbling.
And his phone works.
Yeah, and the phone works. It's back now, by the way. You'll be happy to know it's back. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Samsung.
It's just business with Steve, John, and Steve's phone now.
So the point here is we found there's another story. This is from the New York Magazine, the New York Intelligencer, actually, June 11th. In the NBA Finals moment that is modern pro sports in a microcosm by Will Leitich. Leitch. And everybody saw the video, of course, of Kyle Lowry falling into the stands, practically, right in the seat next to a Warriors minority owner. And this owner lightly shoved Kyle Lowry in the shoulder, and the world just exploded and called this man every name under the sun. Yeah, and so John's laughing at me because it's so utterly ridiculous. I mean, by the way, Kyle Lowry.
He kind of had to lean over to push him. It wasn't like he was, being fallen on, but it's also not like he turned a cold cock the guy either.
I know. I mean, come on. I mean, he pushed the guy in the shoulder, for God's sake.
I think we're making a little too much out of this story.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But the story here uses that event as they say, is kind of a microcosm of how arenas in particular, but even football stadiums, are treating seats that are near the court now, and the economics of this. And for those of you who don't really realize, the story goes into it a little bit. These teams, particularly in basketball, make a lot more of their higher percentage of their revenue from the court side or close to courtside seats than they do in the 400 section.
The Jack Nicholson seats.
Yeah, and so they care far more about these people than they do you and I, who would buy a ticket to a game and we'd probably sit somewhere in like 320, We're not sitting courtside. They don't really care about us. The economics of basketball in particular now are really focused on those players. And so what the article is basically doing is saying, look, we're treating the people up front in a dramatically different way because of the income, the money involved. And if you don't know, and I actually did somebody gave me courtside seats to an NBA game a couple years ago, so I did sit courtside.
How was
it? It ruined basketball forever. I can never go back to another basketball game because those seats are so great. Sitting in the 400 level is just I've not been to a game since, in all honesty, for that real reason. But almost every team, particularly with newer arenas, have private clubs that these courtside. And I had a kid with me, so we couldn't go in the bar, But they have private clubs where the courtside people and the rich proletariat that buy these seats can go, and they're not even really watching basketball.
The proletariat are the nosebleeders. That's the other side. The proletariat aren't down there.
Oh, did I screw up my? Did I screw up my term?
Okay. Spend more time with Marx.
No thanks. I'm kind of proud that I screwed that one up, actually.
That's good. That's all right. That's okay. That's okay. The bourgeoisie is what you're looking for.
Okay, yeah. So the bougie folks spend time in these clubs, and it's a scene. The article talks about how this is a scene, and it's a way to make these rich folks who buy these seats feel special. And the point here is that this Warriors minority owner was sitting courtside, and I think the reason why the world collectively got so mad at this guy is that you have a guy who's probably a billionaire, close to it, who's been privileged his entire life, and he touched a player who, let's be honest, and this is where I'm going to get myself in trouble. I told you,
careful, Steve.
The player's a minority, okay, and so you have a rich white guy.
Well, he's a minority owner, so you have a minority owner and a minority, and now you have a slavery.
Okay, so he was white, okay, touched. And he's Mr. Bourgeois, right?
Yes.
The player, particularly in basketball players relate to the public much better for a variety of reasons. There's fewer players on the court. They're not wearing helmets and pads. They're
it's
all
an accessible sport.
They're very accessible, and so a guy like Kyle Lowry, who when he gets lightly tapped and pushed in the shoulder by a billionaire owner, the public is going to side with Kyle Lowry. Sure. And again, let's be honest, and also say it was a rich white guy pushing a black man. And that doesn't go over well. That doesn't go over well in today's society. So I like the article here, I think, is interesting. Oh, here's the ticket revenue. This is what I was looking for. This is a quote. Industry estimates show that 70 to 80% of ticket revenue comes in the first 15 to 20 rows. Yeah. So they truly don't. They truly don't care about you and your hot dog and your Coke up in section 403. And so
that's been made painfully aware to me.
Oh yeah, exactly right. That's exactly right. And so thoughts. I've been babbled on long enough. Thoughts. Or Chris. I called you Chris. I'm sorry. John, thoughts.
That's all right. I've been called worse than Chris. Not much worse, but worse. The optics of it are as you say bad on the face of it, right? You have a rich white guy pushing a black player, and so that in itself is that's gonna generate conversation, rightly or wrongly. And I've briefly watched the clip. I think what is more than the race aspect of it is that I find sort of offensive is the money aspect of it, because the guy was in pushing the player was not on the owner, right? The player was like a seat and a half away from the owner. Now he was kind of moving toward the owner in getting up, but it's not like he landed on the owner and the owner needed to push him off. He didn't. The owner was sort of
being kind of a jerk.
He was being a dick about it, right? So he pushes the player for literally absolutely no reason. Now, also, this is a professional athlete who's stronger than you or I will ever know anybody to be, right?
If I'm going to push somebody, it's not going to be Kyle Lowry.
Right. Kyle Lowry is an enormous man, capable of defending himself. And Kyle Lowry was not hurt by this man pushing his shoulder. It was more he'd take offense because the guy's pushing you for no reason, and he's acting entitled to be able to do that because he's sitting in that spot and he paid, however much money he paid to be an owner in the NBA. And he paid for and he's got the seat and all this stuff. And so it's the symbolism of it, and it's the optics of it. Here is a rich guy who doesn't want his experience ruined by a sweaty player coming into where he is. And so it's that's where the outrage is coming from. I don't think it's coming from the racial aspect of it, although some people will certainly take that and run with it. But I think it really is more of a this is my spot. What are you doing here? Kind of being a jerk for no reason. That said, I think that from what I can tell by looking at it, I think this is a case of the internet needs stuff to get excited about and chose this.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. And the NBA banned him for a year and forced him to pay a $500,000 fine. $500,000 is nothing to a guy like this. Banning him from the NBA for a year is, I think, an extreme overreaction. But the bigger point really in the article is talking about, like we said, how the NBA in particular treats, the bougie class in these things versus the regular fan. Now, in the case of pushing a player and stuff, the regular fans, especially in today's NBA, this isn't gonna happen.
No, because they're not going to be near the court. Jump up a half a mile to get where I'm sitting.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, Ron Artest and Steven Jackson
they
beat
may
down
run up into the stands.
Ran up like 20 rows or 10 rows into the stands to go beat down some fans, and they were wrong. Yes. And I'd like to point out that the NBA let both of them play again. When truthfully they should have been kicked out of the league for life, if you ask me.
Absolutely, attacking fans is a no-no.
And they didn't just attack fans; they started a riot and really beat down a couple fans. And I'm a Laker fan, and Ron Artest helped us get a title. So anyway, so it's a big part of this, which I touched on in the beginning, was these clubs and how these people are treated, and the fact that they don't even really care about being at the game. Because it's really a see and be seen thing. It's an I'm better than you thing because I'm up close and I'm gonna take my clients to the club. Like the game I went to where I sat on the court side, we had access to this private club that was down the tunnel from the locker room. This was a Houston Rockets game. And I couldn't take my kid into a bar like that, but we went and looked at it at least. And there were people there who had no concept of what was going on in the basketball game in any way.
Sure, they're not paying any attention to the game. I've been in similar, so I have not been in the courtside seats. I have been in the luxury boxes, and in the luxury boxes, I was maybe the only person that gave a damn what the score was at any particular point. Because it was one of these, it was like a corporate thing. We all got invited. I don't remember why I was there, but I was. Somebody thought I would enjoy it. So I went, and it was, there's shrimp everywhere, and there's free booze, and there's all kinds of food, and, the people are beautiful, and all of this stuff. But I didn't have the money to go to sporting events. So I was like, cool, I'm going to, so I was watching the game, and it was just me.
That's not allowed when you're invited to the bourgeois class.
No. They get mad at me at hockey games. I got the seats behind the goalie one time, and I was giving that guy, so it was the opposing goalie for 2 out of the 3 periods, and I was giving him hell. And so were my brother, and everybody else wanted us to shut up, but I wanted my team to win. So,
you want a Steve trivia question?
I do. I was just hoping.
This is Steve Thomas trivia question. I was invited to an NFL luxury box for a game several years ago, and so there was a bet going on. Me and about 3 others who were of the proletariat class, got invited to this thing. So there was a bet amongst the other non-rich folks about because these things have a spread of food, and if you know anything about me personally, you know that I'm not adventurous at all when it comes to food,
That's right.
or anything else for that
Yes.
matter. So the bet was how many hot dogs, knowing that they're free, how many hot dogs would I eat in 4 quarters?
Oh, 6.
9.
9. Hey, man,
I had 9 hot
bad.
dogs
I'm gonna call you
because they were
Kobayashi from here out.
because I didn't have to pay for the hot dogs, and so and I didn't eat any of the rest of the food. It was untouchable, so I just had 9 hot
That's
dogs.
me. I'm embarrassing that way as well. If I go somewhere and they've got they've got caviar and they've got stuffed crab and they've got this and then they've got chicken wings. I'm gonna be that guy with like 3 heaping plates of chicken wings that I'm bringing back.
I was the guy with 9 hot dogs on my plate.
Embarrassing. Nobody can take me anyplace.
Okay,
9
so
hot
that's,
dogs. I'd go somewhere with you, Steve. For 9 hot dogs.
the rest of the food was just unedible. So we'll finish this up here with we're reaching the end of the hour here, but we're gonna finish this up with an update of a story we did before, which is the NCAA basketball scandal. If we can go back in the Wayback Machine, we told you guys, a year ago or so, that the FBI had gotten involved in investigating NCAA basketball because there was evidence of a massive bribery scandal between employees at Adidas and Nike and various coaches at some big-time NCAA basketball programs, and then high school coaches and families and all sorts of stuff. And, it was like newsflash. People are paying elite athletes.
No.
Yeah, no way.
No.
So what happened this past week, and why we brought it up, is that the NCAA has now given a notice of infractions to a whole bunch of other schools.
Notice of allegations.
Sorry, yeah, notice of allegations. Now, this is what they do. The NCAA has evidence of wrongdoing, of rules violations. They send a notice of allegations, and that's what has happened to 6 Division I basketball programs. Now, in the years since we did this story for you guys, there have been trials, there have been testimony, and the bottom line to this is now we think that the new schools in the crosshairs now are some of the biggest names in college basketball. Louisville, we knew about Louisville. North Carolina State, Kansas, multiple time national champion Kansas, Arizona. Zion Williamson was from Arizona.
I know.
LSU, USC, which seems to be in the middle of absolutely every sports scandal.
Yeah, they should just get out of the business.
They're morality deficient, apparently. Oklahoma State, South Carolina, Auburn, TCU, Creighton, and Clemson. And so of those, Louisville, North Carolina State, Kansas, Arizona, USC, and Creighton, and to a certain extent Auburn, are all big-time basketball schools. And they have all been roped into this story. So this is like a to be determined, we'll see what happens from here. But like we told you before, the scandal is expanding. And believe me when I say this is just the tip of the iceberg. So,
here's
John,
what I
thoughts?
like about this story. So I'm reading this story as part of my copious preparation for doing these podcasts. I was reading it, I think, while Steve and I were booting up Skype. So I'm reading it. This is an article posted to Yahoo Sports 4 days ago by Pat Ford and Pete Thamel, and it's entitled "Which Schools Could End Up in NCAA Crosshairs in Hoops Scandal." And it's a good article. It goes into, hey, here's some allegations, and there have been some. There's been some guilty pleas and felony jury findings. And it goes on to say that there's some more may be implicated, and that there's some cases in the federal court system, and they're not sure how the NCAA is going to handle the cases, but we're going to have some upcoming allegations that are going on, and then there's some quotes about wanting to do this deliberately and do things the right way. And it all has to get done. And it closes out by saying, we must get it right. We all just feel that something has to happen this time. We've got to flush it all out, or we're going to lose credibility. And it's a very strong closing statement and quote for the article. The article does not, at any point in time, mention what the allegations are, what the felony charges were, what it is that they're going to get serious about this time. But by God, there have been allegations which could end up being infractions.
So we don't really quite know what is. Okay, so this is why
we don't know. It's you know what it is. It's the sports media version of you can advertise the beer.
You just can't endorse the beer.
You just can't endorse the beer. So what is it that they're not endorsing in the article?
Okay, so the reason why the NCAA has not been more specific about this is that this is a investigation led by the Department of Justice. Okay, and so the NCAA does not really know itself the scope of what is going on. The NCAA has been to the trials. They presumably know about what's going on in the trials. They know what's come out in the public. They know what they've been briefed on. But the NCAA itself does not really know the extent of the information that the federal government has. That's why they're not being more specific about it. What the allegations are going to be is money laundering, fraud.
Money laundering.
Well, yeah, when you're trying to take money.
I know what money laundering is. It doesn't involve my washing
machine.
Turn
it from dirty money, turn it into legitimate money. That's called money laundering.
Yes.
And so when you're trying to steer illegal money to players who are, when you're a public school and you're trying to steer money illegally to players, that's money laundering. And so that is what is about to be alleged. The NCAA can't really say it because they don't really know the details of it. And I think that's why they're not being that specific. They can send a notice of allegation based on information that's come forward in the trial, but I don't think the NCAA really has too many more details at this time.
The best defense that I think the NCAA could take in this case.
There's a defense that they could take?
Well, I think so. And I base this, and you're going to get mad at me for doing this. I
Probably.
base this exclusively on the fact that for the last 2 years we've been hearing about the DOJ's investigation, Bob Mueller and so forth. The best defense I think that the NCAA could do is to get on Twitter constantly and say that it's a witch hunt and that there is no collusion, and if anybody paid the players, it was the Democrats.
You really want to go down that road, John? Oh man, don't get me started. We're not doing the political podcast, people.
Oh no, we're not.
It might be an interesting, entertaining ride if we chose to do that.
One day, Steve, you and I. Yeah, that should be fantastic. Okay, but I don't know. So this has been happening for forever. This has been happening at least since like World War II. This goes back so far, and it's a generationally ingrained thing in these schools. You have these wealthy old people who feel like it's their job to make these teams successful, and they're working with the schools, and the schools are working with the community, and everybody's in on this. And it starts out with these small time programs, but the big time programs just do it bigger. It's
all about the money.
It's all about them, right? It was about. It used to be about boosters trying to, help recruit good players. Hey, you need to get this boy out of here, and I can get his mother a car or something like that. And then the coach is like, well, if it gets me the player, cool. But now it's more than that. Right now, it's if you get this player, that player's going to generate untold amounts of millions of dollars for your university,
for Nike,
and for right. So now it's become where these children, and let's be clear, we're discussing children are being basically auctioned. You've got a variety of schools that are offering this, and this school's offering that, and this and this company, Adidas wants to do this, and you're trying, and all of this is illegal. But they're all doing it. I'm not going to say they're all doing it. I don't have evidence.
Yeah, but
of
here's
that,
the difference, though. The difference here about this case, the federal government does care about this.
Sure.
If there's one serious, the Mueller investigation aside, which was a joke, basically, the Department of Justice is usually very serious about crimes, and they have a really, really high conviction rate, like 95% conviction rate.
Yeah.
They almost always win, and they do care about this. The NCAA has historically had no motivation whatsoever to care about this. The NCAA is motivated to keep the gravy train rolling because they're making a lot of money, and so they don't really want this to come out. And what has happened here is that the federal government, through these trials which have happened, has forced the NCAA to start looking into this from an enforcement perspective, and that is what has started now, is the NCAA's enforcement action, because they have been forced to, because now it's in the public record, and they can't just ignore it, because they'll look like even more cynical hypocrites than we already know they are.
Right. So
so that's what's happening.
This is the thing. It's 6 schools now. It'll be 12 schools or 15 schools, whatever they get to. They're going to go after anybody that they actually have solid evidence on. Some of these schools are going to be better at hiding this than other schools. Some schools, there won't be any evidence. There's some schools, I'm sure, that aren't doing anything wrong.
Maybe.
Well, but they're not schools that win basketball games.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
Yeah. So I think that there's probably, of the big time schools, the names that you're familiar with, the schools that when you get your bracket, in February you start filling it out. It's the schools that aren't the underdogs. Those are the ones that are guilty. But some of them there will be some evidence, and some of them won't. I honestly, there's a big part of me that really feels like there just needs to be a complete gutting of the concept of collegiate athletics, and they need to start from the ground up, because it's just there's so many. It's poison. It's poison.
I'm with you. I agree with you. It's a story for another day. We've reached the end of our hour here, so we could go on and on about this forever. Stay tuned for more on this, because more stuff is going to come out now that the NCAA is finally getting involved in this. Once they know more, we'll hear more. So stay tuned for that. So John, is it even worthwhile for me to ask you to give your Twitter handle?
John, let me look it up.
Okay, while you're looking,
I don't think anybody's ever tweeted me. Can you
Probably
tweet
not,
another
really.
person?
Yes, you can.
Or can you just sort of at them? Is that the same
Well,
thing?
I think that's the same thing.
I'm at John_Worrell. So if anybody is still listening at this point and you have Twitter, just humor me and shoot me something. I just want to see where it comes up in my Twitter.
I may do that from the hog side, just to see how long it takes you to notice that we've done it.
See how long it takes me to get around to it. I get all these. It's I don't know. I have the notifications is always full of stuff that I don't care about, and I'm not.
See, that's how you know when people have tweeted you about the show, though, John. You have to look at those.
Well, but the thing is, they don't. So, it's possible. It's possible that they do, but for some reason, my notifications isn't notifying me of stuff I care about. It's notifying me about all kinds of things I don't care about. Yeah. So then periodically I'll look through it, but not really.
All that is to say, tweet John.
Please, God, I'm all alone over here.
You're alone. And I am not on Twitter, of course, but I am manning the Hogsty, which is at the Hogsty, so you can get me there a good bit of the time. So that is it. Bye. We'll see you in 2 weeks.